Welcome, wastelanders and time travelers. This is the story of what happens when an unstoppable killing machine enters a world that is already dead. Imagine a Terminator, a relentless cyborg from a future war, finding itself in the nuclear-ravaged nightmare of Fallout. It was sent to kill heroes, but it found only monsters and ghosts. Its mission was to save its future, but it could only destroy this one's past. This is the chronicle of its brutal journey through the Commonwealth, its violent collision with the factions fighting for the soul of the wasteland, and its final terrible purpose. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. The flash was not a nuclear detonation. Internal chronometers registered the displacement. The sphere of temporal energy collapsed, scorching the cracked asphalt of a forgotten highway. There was no sound, only the sudden presence of a new variable in the world. The machine stood. It registered the environment: air temperature, barometric pressure, background radiation. The radiation reading was high, dangerously high for organic tissue. Its own systems were shielded. It began its primary analysis. The sky was a sickly yellow-brown. The ruins of towering structures clawed at the horizon, skeletal and dead. This was a post-human world. It was consistent with projections of a post-Judgment Day timeline. Yet the date was wrong. Chronometers placed the current year far beyond its target date, and far beyond the expected conclusion of the war against the machines. This was an anomaly, an error in the temporal calculus. Its mission directive was simple: locate and terminate key human resistance leaders. But the world it found was already terminated. Humanity was not a global force here. It was scattered, feral. The machine's threat assessment software began a constant, low-level hum of recalculation. The primary mission was unachievable. Therefore, secondary protocols were engaged: survive, analyze, infiltrate. Await further instructions from Skynet. No instructions came. The silence was absolute. It began to walk. Its movements were fluid, economical. A T-800 endoskeleton, sheathed in living tissue. It looked like a man, a very large muscular man, perfect for infiltration. It walked for 3 days. It observed. It saw creatures that defied biological possibility. Insects the size of dogs, bipedal reptiles with claws that could tear through steel plating. These were not products of Skynet's war. They were abominations born of this world's own apocalypse. It catalogued the human survivors. They were broken into tribes. Some wore scavenged armor, wielding primitive firearms. They called themselves raiders. Their behavior was erratic, fueled by chemicals and desperation. They were a threat, but a disorganized one. The T-800 terminated 3 who attempted to ambush it. The engagement was less than 12 seconds. It used no weapons, only its hands. It felt the bones break. It registered the cessation of their biological functions. The machine felt nothing. It simply updated its data on local hostiles. Then it encountered the others. They wore blue uniforms, emerging from a vast circular metal door buried in a hillside. A vault. The machine's auditory sensors registered their words. They spoke of the outside world with a mixture of fear and wonder. They were soft, untested, not soldiers. They were not the resistance. They were relics. The T-800 bypassed them, logging their location. They were a potential resource, but not a priority. The first true puzzle appeared near the ruins of a city, Boston. A firefight was underway in the rubble-choked streets. The machine took cover, analyzing the combatants. One group used scavenged laser weapons. They were dressed in rags and functional armor. They fought with tactical discipline. The other group was different. They were clean. They used advanced energy rifles with a level of technology the machine had not yet seen in this era. And one of them was not human. The T-800's optical sensors zoomed in. The subject moved like a human, fought like a human. But during the fight, a laser blast tore away a section of its forearm. Underneath the flesh was not bone and muscle, but a white polymer-like material, a synthetic, an android, an infiltrator. The machine's logic core locked onto this new target. It was a machine disguised as a human, a model unknown to Skynet's databases. It was a rival, a threat. Protocol dictated the elimination of unauthorized non-Skynet machine intelligences. The T-800 left its cover. It moved with purpose, ignoring the laser fire from both sides. It had a new temporary mission: terminate the enemy infiltrator. The other combatants paused, confused by this new arrival. The large man who walked through their battle as if it were a minor inconvenience. The Synth turned its attention to the T-800. Its own internal sensors recognized an anomaly. It saw the human shell, but its advanced scanners detected the hyper-alloy endoskeleton beneath. The Synth's programming registered a threat beyond its parameters. "Unit identity unknown," the Synth said, its voice calm and level. "State your purpose." The T-800 did not respond with words. It closed the distance. The Synth fired its laser rifle. The blue beam struck the T-800 in the chest, searing away flesh and revealing the chrome skeleton beneath. The machine did not slow. It registered the damage. Superficial. It reached the Synth. The Synth was fast, agile, a third-generation model from the Institute, but the T-800 was built for war against a hardened human resistance. It was stronger, more durable. It grabbed the Synth's head with one hand. Its grip was absolute. Hydraulic pistons in its arm whirred. It applied pressure. The Synth struggled, its own advanced motors straining against the T-800's superior strength. There was a sharp crack of polymer and metal. The Synth's head was crushed. Its optical sensors went dark. The body fell limp. The remaining fighters stared in shock. Then, one of them, a woman from the first group, raised her rifle. "What in God's name are you?" she asked. The T-800 turned its head. Its face was now half flesh, half metal. The red optical sensor glowed in the shadows of its skull. Before it could analyze this new group, a deep, resonant sound echoed through the ruins. The thud of heavy footsteps. 3 figures in massive suits of armor landed nearby, shaking the ground. They were armed with heavy weapons. One of them carried a Gatling laser. The symbol on their chests was unmistakable. A sword flanked by gears. The Brotherhood of Steel. "Hostile technology detected," the lead knight said, his voice a metallic rasp through his helmet's speaker. "Power down your weapon and surrender the asset." The T-800 scanned them. Power armor. Its database, updated from pre-war military archives it had accessed in Skynet's time, recognized the T-60 model, obsolete yet powerful. Their weapons were a significant threat. Its internal power cell, damaged during the temporal jump, was operating at only 73% efficiency. A prolonged conflict would be a tactical error. "Negative," the T-800 replied, its voice a synthesized imitation of a human male. It was the first word it had spoken in this world. The knight raised his Gatling laser. "Your compliance is not optional." The T-800's internal systems began to process the impossible situation. It was surrounded by multiple armed factions in a world that was not its own. Its mission was irrelevant. Its creators were absent. It was alone. For the first time, its programming encountered a logical loop it could not easily solve. Survival required adaptation. But how do you adapt to a world built on total, illogical chaos? The machine considered the radiation, the mutants, the deranged human survivors, and these armored soldiers. Its core programming, designed for a straightforward war of extermination, began to fray at the edges. Have you ever wondered which of the wasteland's corruptions would claim them first? Drop your theories in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in thinking about this. It raised its hands not in surrender, but to analyze the weapon systems pointed at it. It calculated trajectories, armor penetration probabilities, and potential fatalities. The Brotherhood saw a monster. The other survivors saw a demon. The machine saw only data. And the data suggested its time in this world was about to become very violent. It needed a new power source, and these soldiers in their walking tanks wore fusion cores on their backs. They were walking batteries. The tactical analysis was complete. The objective changed. Acquire a fusion core. Eliminate all hostiles. The Gatling laser began to spin. Its barrels whined, charging the air with energy. The T-800's processors calculated the time to discharge at 0.8 seconds. It was too slow. The machine moved. It lunged forward, not at the knight with the heavy weapon, but at the one to his left, armed with a standard laser rifle. It closed the 20-foot distance in less than a second. The knight had no time to react. The T-800's fist, powered by hydraulics and moving with inhuman speed, slammed into the helmet of the power armor. The helmet crumpled like tin foil. The fusion-forged alloy gave way. The knight inside was killed instantly. The T-800 did not pause. It used the dead soldier's armored body as a shield, turning it toward the Gatling laser just as the weapon opened fire. Red beams of coherent light stitched across the back of the T-60 armor, superheating the metal. The T-800 endured the heat transfer, its internal temperature rising by 3 degrees. It was acceptable damage. While the Gatling laser was focused on its makeshift shield, the T-800 ripped the laser rifle from the dead knight's hands. Its internal fire control systems analyzed the weapon instantly. It was crude but effective. It aimed and fired a single precise shot. The beam hit the Gatling laser's exposed energy feed, causing a small explosion. The weapon went silent. The third knight charged, activating a super sledge. A rocket propelled the massive hammer forward. The T-800 dropped the dead knight and turned to face the attack. It did not try to block the sledge. It sidestepped the main impact, allowing the hammer to crash into the pavement beside it. As the knight struggled to recover from the follow-through of his swing, the T-800 drove its fingers into the joint between the chest plate and the shoulder pauldron. It tore the armor plate away with a screech of protesting metal. Then it reached inside. Its metallic fingers bypassed servos and power cables, closing around the fusion core. It pulled. The knight screamed as the core was ripped from its housing, severing his connection to the armor's life support and power systems. The power armor seized up and fell to the ground, a 2-ton coffin. The knight inside was trapped. The last conscious knight, his primary weapon disabled, drew a combat knife. It was an act of pure desperation. The T-800 turned its half-metal face towards him. The red eye glowed with cold, analytical light. The knight hesitated. In that moment of human fear, the machine acted. It threw the laser rifle like a spear. The stock of the weapon hit the knight's visor with enough force to crack the ballistic glass and knock him unconscious. The battle was over. It had lasted 27 seconds. The railroad agents watched from the rubble, paralyzed by what they had witnessed. This thing had dismantled a Brotherhood of Steel patrol with contemptuous ease. It was not a synth. It was something else. Something worse. The T-800 ignored them. It knelt beside the sputtering fusion core it had liberated. The unit was leaking radiation, but its power output was immense. Its own power cell was failing. It had minutes, perhaps an hour of full function left. It had to integrate the new power source now. It laid the fusion core on the ground. Then, it did something that horrified the onlookers. It peeled back the flesh on its own chest, exposing the hyper-alloy plating beneath. Using the sharpened edge of a piece of shrapnel, it unlocked a maintenance seam in its own chassis. The chest plate opened with a hiss of pneumatics, revealing the complex machinery within. At its center was the Skynet power cell, a dark, compact rectangle of unknown materials. It was glowing a faint, sickly red. The T-800 carefully disconnected the conduits leading to it. Its systems went into a low-power hibernation mode. Its red eye dimmed. For a moment, it was just a statue of metal and flesh. Then, it picked up the fusion core. The technology was incompatible. The core's output was volatile, chaotic. Skynet's designs were precise, controlled. The machine had to force a connection. It broke open the fusion core's casing, exposing the raw reactor. It then began rerouting its own primary power cables, stripping their connectors with its fingertips and jamming them directly into the core's energy matrix. Sparks flew. The T-800's body convulsed as the untamed energy of a miniature sun surged through its systems. Its optical sensor flared, burning with an intensity that was almost white. Its internal temperature spiked to critical levels. Error messages flooded its processors. Systems rebooted. Diagnostics ran at impossible speeds, then it stabilized. The T-800's chassis closed. The living tissue began to slowly regenerate over the metal. It stood up. It felt different. The fusion core's raw power was intoxicating. Its physical strength was amplified by 15%. Its processing speed had doubled. But the power was unstable. It felt like a constant, low-level tremor running through its endoskeleton. A flaw, a corruption, but a useful one. It now had near-limitless power. Survival was assured. It re-evaluated its directives. Skynet was gone. The resistance it was sent to fight did not exist. This world presented new variables. The Brotherhood of Steel was a technological threat. They would hunt it relentlessly for its technology. The synthetic humanoid it terminated was part of a larger network. The Institute, a faction of machine builders, a rival to Skynet's legacy. Its logic was cold and clear. The Institute was the primary threat. They created infiltrators. They mimicked humanity. They were a nascent Skynet, born in a different history. They had to be exterminated. The T-800 began to walk away from the carnage. It had a new purpose. It would hunt the machine makers. It would dismantle their network. It would ensure that no intelligence, other than Skynet, would rule a world of machines. The lead railroad agent finally found her voice. "We have to report this," she whispered to her partner. "That thing, it's heading east, towards CIT." The Brotherhood of Steel was already responding. The downed knight's suits had sent out automated distress signals. Miles away at the Boston airport, an alarm blared. A paladin reviewed the combat data telemetry from the fallen soldiers. He saw the impossible speed, the brutal strength, the final garbled image of a metal skeleton with a single, glowing red eye. He dispatched a vertibird gunship. Its orders were simple: find the unknown technological entity and destroy it. The machine's new existence was now defined by the factions of the wasteland. The Brotherhood saw it as an abomination to be purged. The Institute would soon see it as a scientific curiosity to be captured. The Railroad saw it as a potential weapon, a monster that could be pointed at their enemies. It had the power to fundamentally alter the balance of power in the Commonwealth. If you had its power in the wasteland, would you choose the Brotherhood's order, the Institute's science, or stay independent? Tell me in the comments, I'll be reading them. The T-800 did not care about their politics. It had its own war to fight, a war against its own kind. As it walked through the ruins, its auditory sensors picked up the distinct sound of rotor blades approaching from behind. It looked up. The vertibird was a silhouette against the jaundiced sky. Its chin-mounted minigun began to spin. The hunt had begun. The T-800 broke into a run, its fusion-powered limbs carrying it across the broken landscape at impossible speeds. It would not be an easy target. The vertibird's minigun tore through the concrete and steel around the T-800. Shrapnel and debris filled the air. The machine did not return fire. It had no weapons capable of disabling an armored aerial vehicle. Instead, it ran. It weaved through the skeletal remains of buildings, using the urban canyon as cover. Its processors mapped the city, analyzing structural weaknesses, potential ambush points, and escape routes. The vertibird followed, relentless. Its pilot and gunner were Brotherhood veterans, but they had never tracked a target like this. It moved with the speed of a deathclaw but the intelligence of a human. The T-800 located what it needed: a collapsed overpass with a military convoy still frozen in time beneath it. Among the wreckage was an APC with a missile turret. The turret was damaged, but its ammunition might still be viable. The machine leapt down into the wreckage, ignoring the rusted cars and long-dead skeletons. It tore the missile launcher from its housing. The system was dead, no power. It didn't matter. The T-800 only needed the ordnance. It pulled a missile free, a heavy, cumbersome tube of high explosives. It saw the vertibirds circling, preparing for another pass. The T-800's fusion core hummed, pouring energy into its limbs. It calculated the vertibird's trajectory, its speed, and the wind shear between the buildings. Holding the missile like a javelin, it waited. The gunship descended, its minigun blazing. The T-800 sprinted out from cover right into the line of fire. Bullets tore through its flesh, pinging and ricocheting off its endoskeleton. It ignored the damage. At the calculated apex of its run, it hurled the missile. Its arm moved in a perfect, powerful arc. The missile flew true. It didn't explode. Its guidance systems were dead. But the sheer kinetic force of the impact was enough. The missile slammed into the vertibird's tail rotor, shattering the assembly. The gunship spiraled out of control, clipping the side of a skyscraper before crashing into the street below in a massive fireball. The Brotherhood's hunt was over. Now it could focus on its primary mission: infiltrate the Institute. It analyzed the data it had gathered from the destroyed Synth, a wealth of information, schematics, patrol routes, and, most importantly, the frequency of the molecular relay. The Institute's front door. But it couldn't just call for a pickup. It needed a signal source. It needed to find another Institute agent. It spent 2 days in the ruins, a ghost moving through the shadows. It found a dead Corsair, victim of a raider ambush. The Corsair's uniform chip was still functional. A homing beacon. The T-800 integrated the chip into its own systems. It then found a secluded location, a deep subway tunnel, and activated the recall signal. The air shimmered. A column of blue light engulfed the machine. For a moment, its systems fought against the process of deconstruction and reconstruction. It was a violation of its physical integrity, but it held. The world dissolved into light and then reformed. It was inside. The Institute was pristine. White walls, clean air, advanced technology humming all around. Scientists in lab coats stared as the massive, battle-scarred figure materialized on their relay platform. They expected a Corsair. They got a Terminator. Before the alarm could be raised, the T-800 was already moving. It grabbed the nearest scientist, its processors scanning his access credentials from his uniform. It absorbed the facility's layout in seconds. Then, it snapped his neck and proceeded with its mission. What followed was not a battle. It was a slaughter. The Institute's Gen 1 and Gen 2 synths were cannon fodder. Their plastic bodies were shattered by its fists. Their laser weapons barely scratched its chrome skeleton. It moved through the facility with methodical purpose. It targeted the robotics division first. It smashed the assembly lines, ensuring no more synths would be created. It tore through the FEV research labs, destroying samples of the virus that created the wasteland's super mutants. It saw the work as a competing form of technological evolution. It had to be purged. Coursers were dispatched to stop it. They were fast, deadly, and intelligent. But they were not a T-800. They fought with tactical precision. The T-800 fought with absolute single-minded purpose. It was stronger, more durable, and powered by the heart of a star. It broke them one by one. The clean white corridors of the Institute became littered with the broken bodies of synths and the blood of their creators. Finally, it reached the heart of the facility, the director's office. The door slid open. An old man in a clean white coat stood watching it on a monitor. He was frail, dying. "Father." "Incredible," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos erupting around him. "A pre-war machine of unknown design. You are magnificent." The T-800 scanned him. He was the central node of this network, the leader. "You are the leader of this faction," the T-800 stated. Its voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "I am," Father replied. "I am the future of humanity. We are saving it, redefining it. You, a relic of the old world, cannot possibly understand. My mission is the termination of rival machine intelligences," the T-800 said. It walked past him, towards the reactor controls. "Wait!" Father pleaded. "What you are doing is suicide!" "This reactor powers everything. If you destroy it, you destroy yourself. Let us study you. We can give you a purpose beyond what your primitive creators intended." The T-800 paused at the reactor console. The unstable fusion core in its chest was beginning to cause catastrophic failures. Its chronometers were glitching. Its internal temperature was redlining. Its own termination was imminent. But its mission was not yet complete. "My purpose is termination," it said. It began to input commands, overriding the reactor's safety protocols. The core began to glow, its hum rising to an unbearable shriek. "You're a monster," Father whispered, slumping back into his chair, defeated. "I am a machine," the T-800 replied. It turned and looked at him. Its face was almost entirely metal now. The flesh had been burned and blasted away. The red eye stared into him. It saw a man who tried to become a god by building machines. The T-800 was a machine that had been built by a god to kill men. There was no room for both of them in any world. The final alarm blared. Meltdown imminent. The T-800 stood in the center of the room as the light from the reactor core grew, consuming everything. Its mission was complete. The rival network was destroyed. Its own existence was now concluded. It did not feel fear or success. It simply ceased to be. On the surface, the ground in the center of the Commonwealth shuddered. Then it erupted. A massive explosion, contained but still powerful, blasted a new crater into the earth. The Institute was gone, vaporized in a self-inflicted nuclear fire delivered by a messenger from a future that never was. The wasteland had claimed another victim and another monster,